Is this a movie, or is this a really long commercial for M. Night Shyamalan's daughter? Let's find out. Welcome back to the channel, folks. Right, this is the new movie from M. Night Shyamalan, Trap. The plot of this film on the good old internet is a man and his teenage daughter realise they're at the centre of a dark and sinister event while watching a concert. If you've seen the trailer of this film, the film is already spoiled for you. Yeah, that is something, after seeing this movie, I think they could have done without. If they could have re-edited that trailer somewhat so we didn't know Josh Hartnett was the serial killer before going in, I think that would have done a lot for this film. I'm conflicted about how I feel about this film, which actually is a good thing, because I was going into this film not really with my expectations that high. Not because M. Night's a bad filmmaker or anything, you know, he's had a few duds here and there, but mostly I really enjoy M. Night's films. I do try and catch them all the time at cinema when they get released. This one was going to be no different, but this trailer has been shown before a lot of films this year. I know music is totally subjective. The music was like, ooh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to enjoy this or not, but it's M. Night Shyamalan. I've got to go and give it a go. Who makes their mid-budget thrillers anymore? Not many people. It's not amazing. I've seen some wild reviews out there. I saw like a 4.5-star review for this film. Each to their own, but for me, this is not one of them films at all. I'll get to my rating at the end. Some of my pros for this film. One thing M. Night does exceptionally well in this film is handle suspense and intensity. Usually when films involve large crowds, I think a lot of the times it's always in the back of my head that it looks very fake. They don't get the subtleties right often. M. Night got the minutiae of a concert spot on, in my opinion. And because we spend a good 75% of this film at the concert, that is one thing M. Night had to depict on screen pretty well. It felt authentic. The crowd was singing along with the songs that were getting played in this concert, so it was very believable. For the first hour of this film, I was totally on board. I was intrigued. I was wondering what the hell's going to happen here. It did have me on for the ride. Very much helped by a stellar performance of Josh Hartnett. For me, he is the best thing about this film, hands down. Where the hell did Josh Hartnett go? In about 2006, 2007, he had two absolute bangers, in my opinion. Lucky Number 11, which I highly recommend, and the other one, which I watch every couple of years since it got released, is 30 Days of Night, a really cool vampire horror flick. His performance in that flick has no business being that good. Josh Hartnett in that is awesome. Around that time, I would have definitely have had Hartnett as Bruce Wayne. This film, though, he plays an unhinged psychopath, and it's so good because he gets the straight-edged dad stuff totally correct. His performance actually pulls you in at the start of the movie. You're like, oh yeah, this is a nice guy. He's a lovely dad to his daughter. What's going to happen here? Well, I know what's going to happen because I've seen the trailer M. Night. You shouldn't have done that. Anyway, his performance in the first hour of the movie is the absolute driving point. He is trying to figure out how the hell he's going to get out of this concert. One thing I absolutely have to commend M. Night Shyamalan on is that we see so many directors come and go that don't really have like a voice or a style. Now, one thing I can really appreciate is no matter how much I'm not into M. Night's film, you can tell by a few frames that that is a M. Night Shyamalan film. Suleika M. Night, I think that's her name. Halfway through this movie, I was like, yeah, this is the worst sort of nepotism I've ever seen. But doing some research after it, she wrote all of her own songs in this. Now, I have to commend her for that. There's a lot of artists out there that don't write their own music. I'm a musician, so when artists don't write their own material, I do find that highly frustrating. I didn't like the music. It's not my cup of tea, but she done an exceptional job in this film with the music side of things. This film sort of goes up like that. Don't get me wrong, I was going into this film and I thought this is going to be a disaster, it's going to be like that. But it's not. It goes uphill. I'm intrigued. But there's a 20-minute slump where it falls off a cliff. Now, M. Night, I am totally cool with you putting your daughter in your film. Absolutely A-okay with me. She's a musician, she's a singer. You want to highlight your daughter's voice, you want to highlight your daughter's music capabilities. I get it. But why did you feel the need to give her this 20-minute segment of acting? Now, I'm sure she's a lovely person. I don't think she can act, people. I might be over judgmental on that. I certainly can't bloody act, but I'm just saying it didn't really vibe with me. And there's a certain scene in this movie involving a house. And when we get to this house, it had the potential to be the best scene in the movie. And it's extremely let down by some lackluster acting in this segment. All the intensity and suspense that's been building up to this point is being sucked out of the room. That for me was a major problem. I thought there were serious alarm bells at this point because I was pretty surprised that I'd enjoyed it as much as what I had for the first hour. We get to this house scene and it falls off a major cliff. Now, in my head at the time, I was thinking, right, so I've seen a couple of reviews and this must be what they're talking about, because I didn't see many of them say it got good again after this point, which is what I'm here to say. So there is this 20-minute slump and it's involving M. Night's daughter who can't act. All right, fair enough. But I'll give the movie props is that it brings it back a little bit and we start putting the focus back on Josh Hartnett, which, you know, I was quite shocked about. I thought at a certain point in this film, I thought, oh, this is the climax. This is the ending. And if that was going to be the ending, I would have been so much harsher on this film. I think there's an argument to be made that this is extremely nepotism heavy when it comes to M. Night. And there's a part of me that thinks it's quite cute that he's obviously such a family bloke. This is not the first case of this situation this year. Earlier on, The Watchers that came out, heavily marketed as an M. Night produced film, but that was actually directed by his daughter. I have not seen that film yet, so I won't comment on that. It might be brilliant. I can only comment on his other daughter who was in this film, who, yeah, has an amazing voice, but this film has so many of her tracks in there. My other negative with this film, and it's a bit of a negative that I have with a lot of M. Night's films, and this has only sort of been a recent thought for me. It's quite tame for the subject matter that we're dealing with. There's a couple of moments in this film where I was like, whoa, that was pretty crazy. I wouldn't have had this as a negative if there was little flashes of harder, maybe R-rated content, because we're dealing with a serial killer. Surely this must be a little bit more violent, I would say. There's a certain scene involving Josh Hartnett and a policeman, and I was like, whoa, where the hell did that come from, man? Then is that tone going to clash with the fact that we're clearly at this concert that is aimed for young girls? I just think for the subject matter that we're dealing with here, it's just a little bit tame on that stuff. Overall, this film is serviceable-ish. I was going in expecting it to be not very good at all, and I've come out of it feeling conflicted. I've wanted to have a conversation with my partner about it. If any film does that, I've got to sort of commend it. I am somewhere in the line of giving this 3 stars out of 5, which is good on my sort of rating. Anyway, guys, that's been my thoughts on Trap. Please let me know in the comments what you thought of the movie. And until next time, I will see you later on. Bye-bye.